We had Catherine Rawlings that came in a few years ago. I think she's actually, her graduation picture is, yeah, right there. She came into a rotation with us a couple years ago, right in the heart of, right after COVID, and she did a really good job too. Now we're gonna take this curriculum and get it out to the rest of the people in the state of Arkansas. So we're gonna be at Harding University today. It's in Searcy at their physical therapy program, talking to them about what they can expect when they come to do a rotation at UAMS. I think in 2022, we spent the entire year creating the clinical curriculum that students would have in their hand on day one when they walk through the door. We spent time, energy, and resources in developing something that was really special, that every time a student would walk in the door, they would have something that would provide structure and provide confidence, even on day one. And what we wanted to do is use 2023 now to get that curriculum into the hands of the clinicians that are at UAMS who will be executing the curriculum on a daily basis, as well as like getting it into the hands of the students that are here throughout the state.
These are 3 of our interns that are here. Anthony, what's up? We have Zach that is from East Tennessee at South, and then we have Anna who is from Belmont in Nashville. On our team, we have orthopedic surgeons, primary care sports med, physician assistants. The goal for us is to make sure that you guys are retaining this information when you come back so that we can have educated conversations, but also just very creative conversations. You guys come and do a rotation here, this is the curriculum you go through. Like for you guys to come into a clinical rotation and for someone to hand you a rotation like, listen fam, this is week 2. I know what papers you're reading, I know what manual stuff you're going over. That's crazy. It's a lot better than just like, I don't know, just come like hang out with me and shadow me and you're gonna see some stuff, right? Like we gotta get away from that. And I want it to be a point where like, when you start talking to these other providers, they have structure in their clinical education. Why do we not as physical therapists? And why are we okay with that? The problem that I've noticed, and I'm not picking on you guys, it was a problem with me. This is actually a shot at me, so please don't take this any other way. I made straight A's in PT school. I had a hard time taking that straight A, and I looked like a busted up joker in the clinic. Like there was this gap. Like I can go A through D all day, Andy. I was good at school. But I got into the clinic and I was like, man, I just don't feel like there was a bridge that helped me get over here. So why do we struggle transitioning this knowledge from the class to the clinic? And how many times is someone in your life right now, oh my gosh, aren't you in physical therapy? I bumped my knee, what should I do? And you're like, I don't know, this is my first semester. But you're in therapy school, you're gonna be your doctorate. Like, tell me what I need to do about whatever. And you go, I'm just a first year.
It's been very special to be able to travel and sit down with these clinicians and these students face to face. You know, in a world where everything is so digital, everything requires a press of a button, the human face-to-face interaction can sometimes be a little bit lost in translation. And I think it was very important for us to spend this year going and sitting down with these students and talking to them and hearing questions and being able to answer questions in real time, as well as the clinicians here at UAMS, being able to sit down and go page by page and being able to talk about how this affects their daily flow, how that it affects their patient care, and how they can interweave this clinical curriculum into their daily life.
This is the PT curriculum, and so if you're OT, you're like, sweet, this doesn't apply to me. You're absolutely right. It might be helpful in some areas, but it might not in others. And so I remember reflecting off my first student and going like, okay, I want that to be better for them. Correct me if I'm wrong. I want y'all's feedback on this. But time and time again, I noticed 3 big things that they were really coming in asking for. And I put this in the curriculum, you guys see it. They all struggle with confidence, critical thought process, and clinical independence. If I really had just narrowed it down to 3 things, they want to be, I'm not confident, I want to be able to do this on my own. And there was this just like A to B thought process. And they had no way to get out of that A to B. So like developing that Okay, cool. So then you have like a midterm in the middle, and then we're going into like lower extremities for the PT. But what was helpful was on rotations that I just didn't get a lot of ACLs for some reason, or I didn't get a lot of elbows. I was comfortable going like, while you're here, you're gonna be exposed to something in the elbow, right? You might not have a lot of caseload because that's not the rhythm of my case right now. And instead of being like, hey Heather, can my student hang out with you? You seem to have a lot of elbows, you take my student. And Heather going like, sweet, thanks for your work on me. And so what I noticed was by giving a little bit of structure to this and giving this to the students in the beginning, I was able at the very end of that to be pretty confident in saying that they got the 3 things I felt like they were missing. We did a really good job of being able to give like visuals for them. So a lot of times a student, they'll come in and like, oh my gosh, I really don't know what to expect. If you go to like the first page, the week 1 through 8, and that's just a QR code. So if I click this, that automatically goes to a YouTube link that has a video for the first 8 weeks. And so it like kind of lays out for the student exactly what they're gonna go. So if it's like, well, I wanna know what to expect. I typically take them this, I have them watch this video, and then we talk about, okay, what are you interested in? Another thing that I remember hearing about was I come from structure. Classes are syllabus and their itineraries, and I have to know when the finals are, and I have to know what chapter we're going over this week, and CAPTI's coming, so they gotta make sure that they go over these particular things. And then I get into a rotation and I'm ready and I'm excited, and it's not. You just said, I have to get used to a flow and a rhythm, which is very abstract. And I've noticed that there was there's just a lot of hesitancy with that. How did you do with the transitions from school is X's and Y's, you know what you're doing, and then coming to a rotation where someone tells you, you'll get used to a rhythm, and you're like, I don't know how to touch that. How did you deal with that transition?
I remember when I was a student, people and professionals coming and talking to us about their education that they could provide and curriculum that they would be able to offer, that didn't happen. And even that was the same kind of atmosphere when we were sitting down with these clinicians and we were sitting down with these students. It was the same feel. These students never had anybody ever come sit down with them and talk to them about what they can expect when they walk into the clinic. And it didn't matter if it was at Harding University or at the University of Arkansas, it was the same across the board. No one goes and sits down with these students to talk to them about expectations and structure that they will have when they come into the clinic. So it was refreshing, it was motivating to be able to sit there and encourage these young, bright minds that they would have that structure when they walk into our team on day 1. Some of the brightest minds in this profession and in rehab come out of the state of Arkansas. We have wonderful programs around the state. We have wonderful minds around the state. And what we want to do, not only as a team of providers, but as a team as a whole, we want to keep those bright minds here in this state. And our ability to be able to go sit down with them early on in their career and give them confidence and give them momentum, we believe is one of our first opportunities to be able to keep those bright minds here in the state. Not only just keep them in the state, recruit them onto the UAMS team. And I think that's important for recruitment of not just talent, but recruitment of elite talent staying in the state of Arkansas and the recruitment of elite talent staying on the UAMS team. And then once they get here, the ability for them to be able to see that they're poured into, to see that there's structure, I believe that that's gonna help with retainment of that elite talent here at the UAMS team.
Hey, what year are you guys? First years. Have y'all gone to rotations yet? I've had professors come in and they said, when you go on rotations, this is what you gotta act like, this is what you have to do, make sure that you represent us in this way. What do you guys think rotations will look like? You guys have talked to upperclassmen, what does it look like? Can we pass those back if you don't mind? Are they hard? Are they supposed to be hard? Are they supposed to be where like you have no rent? You're trying to go to a space, I don't really care what the rotation is, I'm just trying not to pay extra rent on whatever I'm at, so I'm trying to stay in Searcy. I'm definitely not trying to go out. Like what are they supposed to look like? Yeah, what does that mean? Like in your head, like, what's your name? Austin. Austin, you show up to clinics and you're like, man, I'm just trying to learn as I go. Are you just gonna observe me? You're gonna be right here on my right side and just observe for the next 8, 12 weeks? Right. Sure. Like when do I was over here, I heard you guys were doing like drawer tests, Slocum tests. When do I let you do that, Austin? Day 1? Day 10? Like, when do you guys expect to go in? David just taught you guys. You guys expect to go in day 1 and do that? See, what I noticed when I got out, you guys get smashed in the mouth here. Y'all get tests, and the expectations are very high here. You walk in and they give you a syllabus. They know when you're taking a class. They know when you're gonna be tested in a class. They know that all the faculty here know what you're gonna be tested on and when. This is not what I was really expecting. I said, so what are we gonna do here? Like, how am I gonna learn? And they were like, I don't know, just hang out. And I went from like such a structured process in school, and then I got to clinics and it was just like, whatever. In every class, there are a few people that are gonna wanna go to residency. They're probably gonna wanna go to do an OCS. They're gonna go do an SCS. There are gonna be people that are interested in sports and orthopedics. I mean, right now you're learning tests, right? Like in your head, you're probably going like, oh my gosh, what was the name of that test and how do you do it? And that's what you should be doing, right? It's very foundational. You should be learning those tests. What's up, man? What's your name? Mark? Yeah. What's up, man?
So I was wondering, with something like this where it's a rotation,
Yeah.
how would that compare to like the residency after?
So Harmon was the girl's name I told you that moved from LA. She went and did her SCS residency in Kentucky, and I was on the phone with her last week. And I was talking to her, and she was just like, Andy, like I went to my SCS residency, and like all my classmates were like, it took a little bit of a learning curve for them, because they were like, all of a sudden they were met with higher expectations. They were expected to show up, all these outside readings. And they were like, man, are you not having trouble? She's like, nah, I've just kind of been doing this for the last 6 months. Like, I don't know, what y'all talking about? Like, oh my gosh, we got to go to freaking sideline coverage on Friday nights. We got so much work. She's like, bro, I've been doing sideline coverage. On Saturday mornings, I've been doing Razorback stuff. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I've been doing these.
I remember the very first day of my rotation, Andy, who was my CI, he kind of grabbed me to the side after a few hours of doing paperwork and stuff, and he was like, hey, let's just go grab some coffee and let's talk about you and your goals. And I think that was something that was very unique. He really wanted to know what I wanted to do with this sports rotation. He wanted to know why I was doing sports, why I even cared about it, why I felt like it was unique, and what my next steps were after graduation. And once he knew that I wanted to go the residency route, once he knew what my goals were, he really did everything he could to help set me up for that residency route. He expected like journal clubs from me. He expected me to shadow physicians. He expected me to work with athletic patients. Everything that he knew I would see in a residency setting, he set up for me in a rotation. So when I got to my residency, when I started my SCS, it was so easy for me to transition into that. I feel like there were a lot of residents that went into that program and they felt like they were overwhelmed and they weren't prepared because it was just a huge time expectation and a huge commitment, and they weren't ready for that. Whereas for me, I feel like I was kind of able to jump into patient care and kind of start learning and absorbing information because I had already been prepared for the time commitment, and I had already been prepared for what the expectations of me would be. And I feel like establishing that independence made me feel so much more comfortable when I got to my residency, because that's what their expectation was. They expected me to be able to handle a full caseload. They expected me to be able to work with my own patients. And because I had already been doing that for the last half of my rotation at TRM, I was ready to jump into that. So I feel like there were a lot of valuable things that I took away from TRM, and I'm very grateful for the experience that I had there. And I will never forget everything that they did and all of the work that they put in for me to get to where I am. I think they played a really big role, and I'm very thankful for it.
So like for clinical rotations, it's hard to be prepared for what that experience is going to be like. And I mean, it's a wide variety of expectations on the end from the clinic. So we have some excellent opportunities for students that are available. And then we have opportunities that are probably untapped by students just because they're not aware of all the potential opportunities they could have to benefit their educational progression. For your students that really want a specialized experience, where they're pushed harder than just meeting the minimal requirements, you have to have a site that's capable of providing for that. So that's a lot of investment in the student and the student experience. It takes a lot of preparation and a lot of excellence that's threaded through that experience. So We want to have those experiences available for the students where that's going to meet the needs of those that are seeking that type of experience.
We've had students who have used this type of education to springboard them into residencies, into fellowships, that have also led into jobs and careers that stay within elite sports medical care, that stay within elite orthopedic care. And I think that's been important for them to experience this so that it helps them in their journey of their career. You know, a provider's day-to-day can be very busy and very hectic. Patients are in and out, you're expected to make sure that you're staying up on documentation and that your whole day is moving efficiently. And sometimes when you just drop a student into that, it can cause a complete disarray. And our goal was not to cause a complete disarray for our providers. What it was to be able to help them be able to take on a student and provide structure and interweave that over their day-to-day, and so that it stays efficient. It still stays smooth for the patient. The clinician is still able to stay on task and not get off task and be derailed throughout the day. That was the goal, was to help the provider to still stay on task for the day while simultaneously providing structure for the student.